So a few days ago, I opened up my Instagram and my Patreon to questions. I asked you guys, do you have any questions that you would like me to answer on video? You guys will get a shout out and all that good stuff. But not only that, I'm gonna bring some of the other big creators in the psychedelic mycology space right here to answer your questions with me. So this is gonna be an amazing video. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So stay tuned because you might see a question answered right here.
Dripping on acid in the hotel lobby. Everything moving hella fast, Ricky Bobby. Floating in the ethers. Listen to the ethers, you can probably tell the future. Superhuman man.
What's going on, Trip Team? Welcome back to another brand new video. Now, if this is your first time here on Willy's World, welcome to the Trip Team family, the TTF, my familia. I want to thank you guys for all your love and support. We do, hands down, create the best psychedelic content out there. So if you're in the psychedelic community, you want to learn how to cultivate, extract, step by step, this is the place to be. You guys found your family. You guys are a part of the TTF. Now, if you guys really want to watch uncensored videos step by step showing you from the ground up how to synthesize, how to grow, all that good stuff, go check out my Patreon. It's right there, patreon.com/Willy Myco. There's over 120 private videos in the library that you can't see anywhere else. I'm talking about 5-0 extractions, I'm talking about Deems extractions, I'm talking about all different types of cultivation. It's absolutely amazing. I can't show them videos here on YouTube for obvious reasons, but if you guys go over to Patreon, you'll get instant access to that. Not only that, we have one of the largest, best private chat communities in the world. You guys can get access to that. You guys will get access to the private Reddit. You guys will get access to private one-on-one Zoom meetings with me. So that way I could help you with your progress. I could walk through things with you step by step, answer all your questions, whatever the case may be. But there's so many benefits over there, and you can only get them over on Patreon. That's how we fund all of this. We don't make no money on YouTube, so to pay the staff, to keep creating content, everything comes from Patreon. Every single dollar we make over there goes back into creating content, 100%. We don't keep any of the money. Everything goes back into doing events, content, all types of stuff like that. So I just want to thank you guys for all your love and support. Now, I had a couple of my friends jump on this video with me to answer these questions. These are some of the most well-known, biggest creators in the space. So I'm sure you guys are gonna love this. But we were supposed to have one other person on this video, and unfortunately they couldn't make it, but fortunately it's for a good reason. So 90 Second Mycology was also supposed to be on this video, but him and his wife just had a baby girl. So congratulations. And he needed to take the time to spend time with his new baby girl and his wife and all that good stuff. So congratulations. We completely understand. Family first, that's the motto, right? But the good thing is you're gonna see me on videos on their channel. So we'll definitely all be together at some point, but I did get two of my really good friends on this video. So I'm not gonna introduce them. I'll let them introduce themselves. So why don't we jump into the questions that you guys asked us? All right, guys, so I'm here with my friends right now. I'm super excited. It's very, very rare that you'll see all of us on a video together, but we're gonna try to do as many of them as we can on each other's channels. So please, guys, I know everybody probably knows who you are, but if you guys could just introduce yourself. Ashley, you could go first.
Sure, I'm Ashley Enders, and I'm with Boomer Shroomer. I have a YouTube channel as well as have the Instagram boomershroomer.v2.
And who's the puppy at the top?
That's PGT, Philly Golden Teacher. And yeah, I got into making YouTube videos. Mainly, I got the inspiration from you, Willy. So you kind of helped me get into doing this, and I decided to take something that was a hobby of mine that I had fun doing, and yeah, it just changed my life and led me down this rabbit hole of mycology.
Yeah, and I would say same for me, Willie. You got me into growing mushrooms and started my whole mycology, start. And if it wasn't from you, I don't really know where I would be today. And same with you, Philly. Like, honestly, you guys were both out there, and I watched every single one of your videos before I even started. And, I just got into this to try to help people and to try to simplify the process and
That's so awesome.
to see where we could go.
And yeah, it's my pleasure. Since I started this, I've never looked at it as work or anything like that. I'm blessed to get to do what I do every day. I love what I do. I did it for a long time, just because I love doing it, and to be able to do this as your living is just, it's a blessing. It really is. All the people you get to help and the education you get to put out there, and you know, the lives you get to change is absolutely amazing. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. The community has asked us a bunch of questions. We opened up the questions on Instagram and Patreon, and we got some questions. So we're going to try to knock out some of these questions. Some people asked the same question, but in different ways. So if you guys out there asked pretty much the same question, I'll put all your names up on the screen because you guys pretty much asked the same question. We're not going to answer each one individually because they're so similar. You guys are pretty much asking the same exact thing, just in a different way. So let's get into the first question. I'm just going to pick it randomly. I got them all right here. This question is from Instagram. It's from an Instagram follower named Hindiana Jones, and he asked, what factors are involved in growing for potency? So I'll let you guys jump into it first.
Personally, I think that genetics has everything to do with growing with potency. If you start off with a strong culture, it should end strong as well. And I think that that's the most important thing.
What about you, Philly? Where you at?
Yeah, I can attest to genetics being the primary factor in determining potency. There's other things that can play into it as well, but I think genetics is the primary driving factor in terms of potency. It kind of what separates your typical golden teachers from like your peanuts envies, and this is simply down to just genetics that's causing them to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, and I always tell people there's really three driving factors that determine potency. Number one is genetics. If the genetics aren't capable of producing the potency that you're shooting for, it's never going to happen. You could change everything under the sun. If the genetics are not capable of it, it's not going to happen. So genetics are number one. You always want to make sure you're working with the best genetics. Genetics, number one, once you have those good genetics, now it really comes down to substrate and environmental conditions. So obviously, substrate plays a part. Mushrooms eat certain things and can consume certain things that help build their cell structure, which then in turn equates to potency. But also the environmental conditions are very important too. You want to make sure you're following the guidelines for whatever you guys are cultivating. If it's supposed to be in a certain temperature range, it's supposed to have a certain humidity, keep it there, because that's where you're going to get optimal performance from those genetics. But it all comes down to genetics. So potency, it's all about genetics.
I would also have to say with potency, it's how you end the product. So making sure that you don't have too high of heat, or your moisture content is too high throughout the drying process can really affect your potency as well on the back end.
I personally don't find that heat really affects the potency too much compared to what a lot of people suspect it would. Mainly, potency also varies from fruit to fruit as well. Different fruits from one grow will vary in potency between each fruit. So even when you're testing for them, one fruit from the same grow can be much different than another fruit. So that's one of the things that makes it a little bit more difficult in terms of really determining. And the main thing about heat, I mean, I've sent in some samples that were dehydrated at like 90 degrees, and I've sent in some samples that are dehydrated at 165 degrees. And to be honest with you, there isn't much of a difference in terms of the potency there. I mean, it can come
Have you
down to
ever sent in a mushroom that hasn't been dried as to a mushroom that's been freeze dried to see what the level of like your heat would be taking from the potency? And I haven't. This is actually something that I've been wanting to test myself, but just
No,
haven't.
I haven't been able to come across a freeze dryer. I would love to be able
I
to, but
have one.
those things are very expensive, and
Yeah, they are.
so yeah, all my products come from dried fruits. But I do send them in for testing just to kind of see, um, what I can learn from the data that comes back from it.
Absolutely, yeah. For a long time before we had HPLC access, so like, now it's readily available. It's at our fingertips. We get to use it all the time. There was that belief that heat degraded psilocybin, and over long exposure it does, but when we're throwing it into a dehydrator and it's in there for a couple hours, up to 24 hours, it doesn't really impact it, especially within like PGT was just saying, in the 100-degree range, the 120, 140, you'll see very minimal changes. Another thing too, for a long time, people always thought that caps and stems, that caps were more potent than stems. And through HPLC testing, we can see it's not true. That actually, it's actually the opposite. Usually the stems are actually more potent than the caps, like most of the time. So, now that we have access to HPLC testing, we're seeing a lot. One thing I have seen degrade in potency through all the testing we've done is depending on how they were dehydrated. So like freeze drying, like Ashley was just saying, or like if there's too much moisture left in when a person submits a sample, that will affect the potency, of course, because we're going by dry grams, so it's milligrams per grams on a dry scale. And then if there's some moisture left in the fruit, it doesn't really equate for that. So what it's doing is giving you more weight, but the same amount of milligrams per gram. So it looks like your potency spread over a larger sample. So it's definitely important to all you guys out there. If you do grow amazing mushrooms, make sure you dehydrate them properly or freeze dry them. There's actually like an art to freeze drying. I'm terrible at it. But I know somebody that's really good at it. But if you do know how to use a freeze dryer, it's wicked cool because you could keep the formation of the fruit. They look really beautiful. And it completely takes all moisture out of the fruits whatsoever. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's just a quick run through on potency. So let's jump into the next question. We'll take one from Patreon now, and we'll kind of like ping pong back and forth. Wesley asked, what are some realistic career paths in the field of mycology? So I think that's a good question because a lot of people want to get into this space and make it their career. And there's so many different facets and different things to do in this space. From becoming a vendor to becoming somebody that goes out and finds genetics and brings genetics to the market, to somebody that educates like we do or develops products. I will tell you right now, so on the active side of mushrooms, we're kind of at the ground floor of what the possibilities are in the space of actually creating businesses and actually making an income off of the active sides. But medicinal and gourmet have been around for a long time, and that market is a $40 billion a year market. So if you wanted to start growing medicinal and gourmet and go to the farmers markets and provide a really good product to the consumer, there you can make a really good living in that. And then, obviously as this market opens up a little bit more on the active side, you could expand into that side. But I always try to tell people, if you want to make money in this space, find something you really love that you're really passionate about and just go for it. If it's creating content, it's creating content. If it's cultivating, it's cultivating. But there's so many amazing things you can do in this space.
I would 100% agree. And I mean, a lot of things can happen by accident. So keep trying and creating new products. And I can tell you that the inflatable monotub was not something that I was sitting around trying to think about. I was just selling a standard hard tub, and we had some shipping problems, and I decided to make it inflatable. So I would really say to reach maybe past your comfort level and to try to do something that maybe you're not used to, and you never know what might happen. the sky is the limit.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there if you just kind of find ways to try and enter the market in a creative fashion. You kind of have to set something up to differentiate yourself from the rest, because a lot of people, when they get into mycology and they're able to grow mushrooms, they kind of run with this idea that, oh, I know I can grow mushrooms. I'm gonna become a mycology vendor, sell supplies, like sell sterilized grains, substrates. Like, there's a lot of people doing that at the moment. A lot of people are kind of jumping into the space trying to do that. And I say, all for it. Feel free to try it. Give it your best shot and try it. I mean, like, you're gonna learn along the way as well what works and what doesn't. And mainly, in order to kind of succeed, you really have to stand out among the crowd, in one way or another. But I do find that there's many different ways to enter this space. I mean, you could do it from the gourmet and medicinal side. You can, like Willie said, provide gourmet mushrooms for your local area. If you live in an area where there's not that many mushroom farmers, that's an opportunity for you to jump in there and provide to your local community, whether it be to the farmers markets, to local restaurants there, or to just even having a store, in the area there that kind of caters. I know in my area, there's some places that open up seasonally, to provide mushrooms. And I think in the future, there's going to be a lot more spaces developing in the active side in terms of psychedelic therapy. As that's something that's kind of being looked into right now. A lot of the um, active mushrooms are being looked into for medical purposes, and a lot of states now are starting to pass bills that allow you to use it medicinally. That's going to be an emerging trend that is going to open up a new space for a lot of careers in this path to explore. These are going to be like new jobs that aren't quite the standard now, because these are just emerging jobs. These are emerging industries, and in the future, we're going to start seeing a lot more of those opportunities pop up. Right now, I know there's a lot of people offering classes in order to kind of get verified for psychedelic research therapy. So that's something a lot of people can look into at the moment to try and get that head start into, riding into when that, is actually legal and accessible for a lot of people, which is going to be coming up in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also found that not just creating content, which is amazing, but I've had to diversify, because pretty much everything we make from creating content goes back into creating more content, paying the team and stuff like that, that works 24/7 every single day on editing or putting things together, moderation, and all this stuff. So I've had to diversify a little bit, and what I've found a lot of success in that I just never really thought about was actually consulting. And I've gotten into consulting kind of just to help people, and it's actually grew into a business over the last couple of years. And I will tell you, you do have to have a lot of experience, because you're pretty much getting paid for your experience to help other people. So it's not something you just want to jump into right away, but there's a great opportunity there. I actually get so many requests to consult that I have to turn down about 80% of the people, because my team's just not big enough. But it's like almost every single cannabis dispensary or cannabis grow operation or investor wants to get into commercial mushroom growing now, and get set up for the emerging market. So I've been very blessed in that space. So building brand recognition is super important too. Your name, your reputation, and what you're doing and what you're about is super important, because that's how people find you. And yeah, I'd just say there's so many different facets that have just opened up from doing this, and brand and reputation is a big thing as well. And I think the therapeutic side, like PGT said, is going to be a big market, super big market actually. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's jump into the next one. Here we go. This is so two people actually asked pretty much the same question. One is Mush Wars, and the other person is Esolafi. And they asked, what's your opinion on mutations? If they're isolated, can the person name it? So they didn't create nothing new. They isolated a mutation. Can they rename that mutation that has nothing to do pretty much with the original genetics? Where do you guys stand on that?
I'm gonna give this one to Philly. He would know more than me.
That's been a big topic of debate in the community. Obviously, with isolations, if you can isolate something down and be consistent and unique, I would say it'd be fine to name it. But the one thing is, I also want to say that even if you rename it, still keep it true to its lineage. Like if it's an ape or something that you've isolated out that's mutated, like keep it so that people know its lineage. Like don't try and go call it like green monkey lizard ass king or whatever that you come up with, and it just kind of makes things so much more confusing doing it that way. So that's just my opinion onto it. Obviously, the space is kind of how do I say it? It's an uncharted territory, pretty much. I mean, if anything, it kind of follows behind the cannabis industry and what people are doing with cannabis strains. Yeah, people are gonna do what they want to do with it. There's really not much that you can do in terms of controlling it, but I do think having some proper information out there, just some type of thing that can link back to his lineage and just give credit to where it's properly come from.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's where it's important. Don't obviously if it came from something, let people know that's where it came from. Like, that's all I have to say.
I would agree to that completely. Like, I mean, if you're gonna have a different genetic of something that you believe is your own, which I'm sure there are, is to show where it came from. Because ultimately, it's a genetic of the original strain, even though it's a mutation of what you have found. So
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this has been something that's been in the community for a long time, and yeah, there's amazing isolations out there that are just amazing. I mean, we see so many cool things. True Albino Teacher and this and that, rust spores, and all these different cool mutations that are isolated. And at the end of the day, it's okay to give it your own spin, so people know what it is, but also just so that lineage is there, it should be close to what it is. So let's say like True Albino Teacher, for example, like a True Albino Teacher. We know its lineage comes from Golden Teacher, right? Because it's a true albino teacher. But if they want to name it, let's just say Abominable Snowman, right? It's okay, but it should be like True Albino Teacher in parentheses, Abominable Snowman. Like, so that way it's like, okay, we know Abominable Snowman is Mr. Mike's isolation, but we also know the genetics too, and we don't want to lose genetics. There's a lot of work that goes into genetics. I do a lot of stuff on my Patreon and stuff, like showing people all the work that goes into stabilizing genetics and isolations and stuff like that. There's so much work that goes into it that we don't want that to be lost. We've seen mushrooms in the past be lost to mislabeling and not labeling things correctly. And it's getting really difficult because you're seeing like new hybrids pop up. It seems like every week there's something new, and it's like you don't want to discredit anybody. You don't want to, like discourage anybody. But I will tell you, for a long time there was no hybrids other than ape. Ape was out there, and it was still heavily debated whether it was just an isolation of a mutation albino from PE or if it was actually created. Whatever, I don't know. I don't care. I'm just saying it was heavily debated. And then all of a sudden it started like right when COVID kicked off, when people were home. Then we started seeing, the space open up more, the psychedelic space, the active mushroom space. And then all of a sudden there's 20,000 spore vendors, and now all of a sudden there's a new hybrid every week. And it just, mathematically, it's improbable. It just can't happen. So I think a lot of stuff that's out there as hybrids is not hybrids. It's just isolated mutations. But, I like variety. I like growing new stuff and seeing new things, and I think that's cool. I think it keeps it fun. But then I also do realize that sometimes it's just a gimmick to sell more genetics and to drive customers to the sites to purchase things, the new hot new thing. I mean, I always use this example in the cannabis space because you guys, I'm not sure if you know this, but like if you went back a few years, there was this genetic in the cannabis space that came out called Oracle. And Oracle was like $1,000 an ounce. It was like so expensive. It was like so hard to find. It was like a unicorn. And people were selling these genetics, these Oracle genetics, for ridiculous amounts of money. They were selling the like end flower for ridiculous amounts of money. Then somebody actually ran it and found out that it was just AC/DC. It's something that's been out for a long time. Somebody just renamed it with a name, put a bunch of hype behind it. It was selling crazy at ridiculous numbers. And then somebody actually just ran it and they found out it was just AC/DC, actually a CBD high strain that's been around for a very long time. And that just goes to show you market manipulation when you pump up a stock. You see it in the stock market. You see all these different things. People just build something up because they want to sell a bunch of it. So it's the new hot thing. So I would just say, tread carefully. And anybody that is creating hybrids, like legitimate hybrids, should have the documentation and everything leading up. So when they release that hybrid, they should be able to release all the plates, all the microscope slides, everything to back up, the evidence to back up their hybrid. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it.
I kind of feel like what you kind of mentioned there with that cannabis strains, the same thing kind of happened in the cube. That's why they have the cube known as Blue Meanie.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, Blue Meanie for a long time. Yeah, that was strictly reserved for Pinellia Cyanescens. And like then all of a sudden Blue Meanie the cube comes out, and it got really cloudy between Blue Meanie the pan and Blue Meanie the cube, and so kind of now it just refers to the cube. People don't really refer to Pinellius as Blue Meanies no more, but for many years before Blue Meanie the cube came out, it was only reserved for Pinellius. There was also a company that released, I forget who it was, but there was a company at some point, a spore company, a well-known spore company, that released a hybrid between Psilocybe cyanescens and a cubensis, which is mind-blowing, because it's one thing to like cross like within the same species, like a Psilocybe cubensis. It happens all the time on a microscopic level with multi-spore genetics, but to cross from a wood-loving mushroom to Psilocybe cubensis, that's like never been heard of. So a company released it. I'm not sure what happened, but it pretty much was a hoax. But like same thing, like people were going crazy over it. And it wasn't just new people going crazy over it, like people that really don't know. I mean, there was veterans that were jumping on top of this genetic to find out it was just a cubensis. It had nothing to do with Psilocybe cyanescens.
Yeah, I think it's still relatively new that people are trying to cross different species of psychoactive mushrooms. I know Yoshi's been working on one where it's Natalensis crossed with a cubensis. I know he has it on his store. He calls it Yellow Umbo. But I know he's made some videos on his channel kind of going about that process and kind of explaining how Natalenses kind of have very similar DNA structure to cubes, and that's kind of what allowed them to be able to cross those two um, species together.
Yeah, I haven't looked into Yoshi's stuff, like as far as that genetic, but I will tell you just from knowing, yeah, if you was gonna cross anything, Natalensis with cubensis is a very likely probability because they are so close. And Natalensis, is debatable, but some people say it's the more potent of the mushrooms. But, like I said, cubensis has so many variations. There's so many subspecies or substrains that it's like we can't really say that for sure. But genetically, yes, they're very close. That's why a lot of people call them like the cubensis of Africa because of how close they are. So, yeah, that's wicked cool. I got to look into that. That's awesome. So Bill P from Instagram asked, ways to make sure you don't get trichoderma. I'm sure we all have our own thing, but you guys go first.
I would say that you just need to be thoroughly clean. My process is like when I'm cleaning a monotub, I spray the monotub down several times with 70% isopropyl. Make sure not to use 90% because it evaporates too quickly and doesn't actually sanitize your area. I then like bring it in, I wipe it down again. I let my tubs actually sit overnight. And then in the morning, I will then clean them again. And as a final precaution, you always have an air purifier in my room. And when you want to make sure that you change out your filters regularly because they do get very clogged pretty quickly. It's actually pretty amazing how fast they get dirty. And by doing these protocols, I've really reduced my contamination. I maybe get about 10% contamination, and that's like in a spawn bag and a petri dish. And rarely, it's usually on my second or third flush is when I get some trike in the tub.
Reducing trike really has to come down with keeping your area clean. Um, a lot of people tend to neglect their area that they keep their grows in. Obviously, a lot of people tend to just focus on growing, but not a lot of emphasis has been put into cleaning everything. And cleaning is essentially very important when it comes to mycology. If you don't have good cleaning habits, your grows, it's going to reflect in your grows. For me, what I've kind of kept it down is making sure that the grain spawn is completely clean. I find oftentimes it tends to stem from bad grain spawn or infected grain spawn that's causing that. Similar to Ashley, I also keep an air purifier in the room. I also isopropyl all my tubs down before I spawn into them. Replacing filters, that's a given one as well. And yeah, and if you do have any signs of trike, get rid of it early. Do not let that thing sit around and develop and grow more mold spores, because then it's going to become a nightmare when that starts spreading around, and that stuff spreads fast. And if you dealt with trike spores, that stuff is very dusty, it's extremely microscopic, and it's pretty much like easily to get anywhere in the air and land on stuff, and it's one of the most common contamination that you run into, and almost every mycologist is going to run into dealing with trichoderma at some point. So my tip is just if you do spot it, get rid of it ASAP. Do not play with it. Do not mess with it. Do not keep it around. Get rid of it as the first sign that you see it, and it's going to help to minimize the risk of it spreading throughout your area.
I do have one other thing is a lot of my customers seem to get trichoderma when they're fruiting. And so it's really important to keep yourself clean. So it's like one of my protocols before I even enter my studio, I spray myself down with isopropyl, making sure to kill any spores that were on myself. And if I'm actually spawning a tub, I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to wear clean clothes. I'm going to try to reduce every single factor so I am not the reason that contamination is a problem.
Exactly, yeah. Trichoderma, or what we call mean green or trike, if you're getting into cultivation, it is going to be something you run into at some point. We've all dealt with it, and it's an environmental mold. So, like, 90% of the time, the mold is environmental. It's in the room, it's on your clothes. You know, it's on the equipment that you're using. Your space isn't clean. And sometimes it will come from the grains as well, grains not being sterilized properly, or, you know, things like that. The thing is, all molds are spores, so they release spores into the air, just like mushroom spores, except these are not the spores we want to grow. These are not the spores we want to germinate. So definitely isopropyl, keeping your area super clean, trying to use a table that is stainless steel is the best. You want to use a table that's not very porous, that isn't like has divots and stuff like that, because stuff gets caught in there. But and like PGT said, once you do get a mold, just get rid of it. There's no save. Don't try to cut it out. Don't try to save it. Just get rid of it, because once you open that up, it's going to release a plume of spores into the air that you could be dealing with for months or years to come. It will affect future growths, and it's something you're always going to have to stay on top of. Like Ashley said too, she said a really important number, 10%. And in the commercial grow industry, we use that number to tell if we're a successful grow operation or not. So 10% is the number that we want to stay under to be considered successful. So if 10% or less of your stuff is getting contaminated, you're doing well. It's all about catching it really early and getting rid of it. Sometimes you have to look at things as a whole too. You don't want to just look at it as, oh, on this grow, I had 10 bins that got contaminated, or 10 bags. Sometimes you need to look at it over months, over a quarter. You know, go every 3 months and say, over these 3 months, I had X amount get contaminated, because you're going to have some runs where nothing gets contaminated and everything goes great. And then you're going to have some runs where you just get some contamination. So you have to average things out and see if you're at that 10% mark if you're growing commercially. If you're just growing at home, it's a learning process. Enjoy the process. Don't worry about the destination. Enjoy the journey. And don't get too caught up or too frustrated if you get contaminated. I've seen a lot of people quit mycology because they had no patience. And they just get frustrated and give up because they get contaminations. And it's like, we've all dealt with this. You have to be able to get past that. I promise. Failure makes you a better mycologist. It makes you a better cultivator, because you learn from your mistakes and you rarely repeat those same mistakes in the future. So just stick with it, keep going, and just try to be as clean and as sterile as possible.
That reminds me, one of the things to help combat against contamination is to increase your grain spawn and increase the amount of tubs or whatever you're growing. Like you want to split. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, is what they say. You want to split it up into multiple baskets so that you have a higher chance of success that way. So if you end up getting one tub contaminated, the rest of your stuff is not going to contaminate. Like so many new growers, they put all their stuff into one giant mono tub, and they don't have any backups for it. And then when it goes bad, they're going to feel so down on themselves because they wasted so much time, so much grain spawn, so much substrate into this giant tub that didn't work out how they wanted to. When you could just take that same amount and split them up into like several shoe boxes, you're diversifying your chance of success. And that way, if something does go bad, you don't lose everything, and you're still going to get something out of it, so that your time spent can at least net you something instead of a total loss.
All right, man, that's cool. Look, one last question, and then we're gonna end it. But I know we'll be doing future videos with each other on your channels and stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll get to a lot of these other questions down the line. But I have a question. Someone comes up to you today. They've never grown. They've seen one of your videos. Where do they start? Where would you tell them to start cultivating, or where their jump off point should be? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to start with my start to finish video. It's a pretty 15-minute concise video that shows you how to grow from start to finish. I would say that you need 4 things to get started: an LC or a spore syringe, a spawn bag or a grain jar, some bulk substrate, and a monotub. With those 4 things, you can do the whole process. And don't be frustrated. Like, this is a process, and you're learning, and take it step by step and enjoy it.
Absolutely. What about you, PJ? Where would you tell them to start out at?
For me, I've had my most major success out of the broke boy tech. That's kind of what led me back down the rabbit hole of mycology. Like originally, I started off with PF Tech, and I know that could be a little bit daunting now that things are more simplified down. So I think broke boy tech is kind of what got me back into it, just because it's just a much easier process to get going. And I have a playlist on my channel called the Complete Broke Boy Tech Playlist, where I do detail everything out from start to finish. So that's kind of where I tend to point people to go to. But it's just like similar to what Ashley says, you just need some spores, sterilized grains, substrate, and something to spawn them into. Like just those four things. And yeah, just have patience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I same thing. I always suggest people, if they just want to grow, I always ask them, do you want to grow and continue this path? Do you want to grow and get bigger and really stay in this space? Then I always tell them, start at the PF Tech, just because you learn so much at that level about sterile technique and putting together your own substrate and, you know, a fruiting environment, what it requires, misting, fanning, all that stuff. If they tell me like they kind of just want to grow, they're not sure, they don't really know if they want to go any further, they just want to get into it, get a couple fruits and see how they like it, I always tell them just go with a 90-second tag. Or go with some Uncle Ben's, or go pick up a really cheap grow kit from like Shroom Supply for $25. You get your grains, your substrate, all that stuff delivered to you. And then you just go buy some spores. And it's step by step, so simple, but it might spark that bug in a new cultivator to keep them wanting to go further. We all got amazing videos. I mean, we probably have thousands of hours worth of videos between all of us. But yeah, I was just curious because I get that question all the time. People come up to me, where should I start? And it's like, I'm curious as to what other people tell them. Like, you know, like where they should start. But those are all really, really solid places to start from. So, guys, I want to thank you for joining me on this video. Just before you guys cut out, can you just tell everybody where to find you guys? Like, where, you know, your socials, your Patreons, your YouTubes, all that stuff. Just let people know, because I know most people know who you guys are, but some might not, and they might want to go check out your stuff.
Sure. So you can find me at boomershroomer.com. I also have a YouTube video or channel called Boomer Shroomer. And I also make pretty sweet time lapses that I show on my Instagram, which is boomershroomer.v2. And I have a TikTok that's Boomer Shroomer. So.
Yeah, and guys, also, you guys have seen on the screen the whole time, everybody's Instagrams are right there. But if you guys want, you could also go into the description, into the comments. I'm going to link all their social media, everything that you need to find these people and go support them. So what about you, PGT?
Yeah, I am found on YouTube at Philly Golden Teacher. I have phillygoldenteacher.com and pgtmycology.com as well. My Instagram is PGT Mycology and Philly Golden Teacher. And I have a Patreon as well, patreon.com/Philly Golden Teacher. Anywhere else that you see me, chances are it's possibly someone that's impersonating me. I am not on TikTok and I am not on Facebook. So if you do find accounts, another thing, I am not on Telegram. A lot of those accounts will point you guys to Telegram, and I am not on there. So just beware of accounts that are impersonating me. I'm sure there's accounts impersonating Willy and Boomer Shroomer as well.
I would second that like 100%, guys. Please look out for the scammers. There's so many. They'll message you trying to get you to get things. It's like, please be conscious. If you don't know who they are, look us up. Like, take a quick Boomer Shroomer, Philly Golden Teacher. If you look us up on YouTube, our actual channels will come up. So just be so careful.
Exactly. I mean, I tell people literally at the beginning of every single one of my new videos, here's my social media. If you don't see it here, it's not me. I have so many fake accounts, and I feel really bad for the people, because so many people write to me I literally had somebody write to me and tell me I owed them money. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even sell anything. What do you, and they're like, yeah, I sent you $800. I'm like, look, that's not me. Like, it's not me. I will never ask you for money. I don't, like, you know, we're not going to reach out to you guys and be like, hey, you want to buy this? Like, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Telegram is just a scammer place. If they tell you to go to Telegram, it's none of us. I don't know one person in the space that has a Telegram. Legit, I don't. Just be very, very careful. Make sure you see us actually promoting the social media, and if you see us promoting it, then it's a pretty safe place. And also to look for the social medias that have the biggest followings, because those are going to be if you see it has 200 followers or 1,000 followers, it's not us. You know what I'm saying? We all have decent sized followings, so kind of go off of that.
To pull off on that, there's a lot of scammer accounts now that seem like they have a big following to look legit. And just to let you guys know, these scammer accounts are buying fake followers. Right now, there's a fake PGT account out there on Instagram with 11,000 followers, and I can tell you that's not me. And you can tell mostly by the content that they're posting that it just seems wrong, and that it's just not quite it. But a lot of people do tend to fall for these accounts just because of the following account. So just letting you guys be known that these scammers are buying fake followers. There's bot accounts out there that they're paying, and the amount of money that they're making from scamming people allows them to purchase these fake followers and continue the trend. So the more they scam, the more these accounts are just going to keep coming, and it's just kind of a never-ending cycle. So all I can do is just try and educate people to know about them and just stay on top of it so that they aren't getting scammed.
Exactly. Yeah, I like with the scamming fakers, scammers, they are getting so good at what they do. Like, and so they rip all of our photos. They rip photos from other people. You know, it's sad. It sucks because a lot of the platforms won't even do anything to take them down. You have I have so many fake accounts, and I've reported them. They don't do anything about it. So maybe once in a while I'll be lucky if they take one down, but like 2 more pop up in its place. So yeah, guys, just be extremely careful. If you ever want a giveaway from me, I know it's the same for you guys. We're not gonna ask you for money, like to ship stuff to you and stuff like that. Like if you ever want a giveaway, it's 100% free. So just be careful, guys. Be safe. Stick with each other. We love you guys. I'm gonna put all the information down below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. We're gonna be doing a couple more of these videos with these guys, so you guys will be able to go over to their channel and be able to check out videos with me in it and other people. So thank you guys for all your love and support. I'm Willy Myco. Do good, be good, live good. Namaste.